She's also the EDI lead for Rotherham, Doncaster and South Humber. Shirley has recently been acknowledged for her award in her excellent work. She's got 40 years of experience as a nurse within the NHS, within nursing, midwifery and health visiting. She's got a history of working across social determinants of health and health inequalities and addressing social justice for both colleagues and services across NHS trusts. She has an understanding and realization that these are preventable and avoidable. Shirley is lead on the Race Equality Project for Sheffield Children's Hospital, collecting the narrative and the stories of colleagues' experiences and what they need to help them thrive within the organisation. She's made recommendations for improvement are in place today. Shirley now works as an EDI lead at R-Dash, campaigning for inclusivity and belonging, and to help lead the organisation towards becoming an anti-racist organisation. Shirley, please take it over. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. What a joy and a privilege to be here. I was saying, what an honour and a pleasure to be here with you all and to share the platform and to listen to Bo's experiences really resonate with me. And it's interesting how we have come together now, but yet coming from very different origins, if you like, and very different beginnings. So it's really, really intuitive and interesting and joyful actually to be here on this platform with you all. So my name is Shirley Kirkland. I was born in 1963, so I am 62 this year. I know I don't look it, but I feel it. I'm born to Laurie and Algon Lewin. They were immigrants who came here in 1960 from the Windrush generation. So I'm born in England, although I've often asked, where are you from? Where are you really from? I says, I'm English, I'm born in Sheffield. I'm very proud of that as well. So I'm a Black woman born in England with the heritage of Jamaican heritage. And I'm really proud of that mix and that fusion. So, so the first slide, could you put the first? Yeah, that's fine. Just leave it on that first slide, because that first slide is me before I went to do my nurse training with my very good friend Karen. When we were brought up really together, because she lived one side of the road and I lived at the other side in Sheffield, Mearsbrook. And we have had a life journey together as really close friends. So she's been a real inspirational part of my life. So I really like that picture. And that was me before I went off to do my nurse training. So in the introduction, you were told that I've had over 40 years in the NHS. I'm really, really proud of that. Really proud of how I've navigated through the NHS. I'm really proud of what the NHS has done for me, but not proud of some of the barriers and the challenges that we still have as Black people within the NHS. But I will never dish the NHS, because the NHS is me. If you were to cut me in half, you would see NHS running through my blood, because I'm absolutely staunch advocate of the NHS. So, I didn't have the easiest upbringing. Sheffield, growing up in Sheffield in the 60s, 70s, it was difficult. School was difficult. There was a lot of assumptions made of me in school. I definitely think I've got a diagnosis on the spectrum, probably dyslexia, but those times we weren't really assessed. So, you know, we weren't really, you were just told that you're not particularly bright and you just, you know, muggle through. There wasn't any real sort of support and advice, really. So I had that really as a challenge, as well as being a Black. Oh no, what's going on here? You still hearing me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, Shirley.
Oh gosh, it's just going around. Wait a minute. You can hear me, but you can't see me.
We can see you now. Perfect. Oh, we've lost you again.
Oh. One of those IT days.
Perfect.
Oh yeah. So growing up in Sheffield, you know, and going through school, school told me that you wouldn't really do that well. You were going to go to Gunstons. Gunstons was the local factory that was in Dronfield. It was a bakery factory, and I was keen that I didn't want to do that. I was really, really sure from a very early age I wanted to be a nurse. Always wanted to be a nurse. My auntie was a nurse. My mom worked as a nursing auxiliary on the wards, worked night duty, which a lot of women who came up from the Caribbean did at that time. Many of them had actually got qualifications back home, but they weren't acknowledged here. So, you know, they went and worked as auxiliaries or worked in the steel industry and that such. So when I left school, I left with mostly CSEs, with certificate of secondary education qualifications that didn't really give you much of a leverage to go into to do anything. So really I had to go back to school to get my O levels to be able to go to London. Actually, I went to London to do my registered general nursing. That's what it was called at that time. So I just wanted to show that picture. It heartens me, that picture. So if you can just have the next slide. Lovely. So this is me really, it's all like my career journey. And it's a long journey because like you say, I left school, I went, did my O levels, and I went to nurse training, and I went to North London to do my nurse training, and I did that in 1984, my nurse training. And I qualified 1987, you know, went through my training very well, had no problems there. When I was qualified, I wanted to come back to Sheffield because my family were here. So I achieved a job, a post, but that was in a what we call geriatric then, care of the elderly now, ward. Which was a long stay sort of ward. And it was not seen at that time as really a progressive post to be in, which, you know, on reflection now, you know, things that we would have looked at it very differently. But at that time, it seemed very like it wasn't going to take me anywhere, really. Although I really enjoyed the basic grounding I got in managerial aspects of nursing. So what I decided to do then, I did and stayed there for 6 months, and I went and did midwifery training. No real structure or planning to my journey, you know, but I just thought I need to get out of where I am now. So I applied to do midwifery. So I went and trained as a midwife at Jessop's Hospital. Tough training, you know, some real harsh practices and difficult practices, and saw some things that weren't conducive with healthcare now, you know, particularly when it came to marginalisation or discrimination against Black and brown women who were in labour. Often pain relief wasn't offered appropriately or timely, you know, more sort of mechanical deliveries, like forceps deliveries. So I saw some difficult practices, and you know, when we assessed new babies when they were born, we were saying, you know, we were using Apgar score and saying, is a baby pinked up? But we weren't looking at the ethnic origin of the child, really. So some of the practices weren't always necessarily very safe. And I know a lot of those are being addressed today, but there's still issues around midwifery care and Black and brown women in labour. So it's just one to just hold on to there. So when I started, after I qualified as a midwife, we called it E grade then. It was an E grade because it was an agenda for change those times. So I got an E grade job. And then I was there until 1991, not doing too badly, but finding that I was often on night duty because I hadn't got children at that time. You were told, oh, you do nights because people with children need to be on days and all the sort. There was no real discussion around a lot of care and practice. It was just like you were just funneled into certain areas. So, but midwifery gave me a really good grounding, really, to where I wanted to be. And then after midwifery, that's when I started to think, where am I going long term? So I did into health visiting, and I did health visiting training in 1991 to 92, and I trained in North Derbyshire. Then I trained in North Derbyshire for a long time. I was in North Derbyshire for like 9 years, just really drifting, not thinking about a career pathway or where I was going. I had a lot of discrimination in Derbyshire, only black health visitor in a little mining village. After was actually declined access into some of the homes because of colour. You know, I don't want that black health visitor without even giving me a chance to put through the door. And actually, at that time, there was no sort of challenging of that. It was just like, I would just come back. The manager would say, well, we'll send the white health visitor. And you just got on with it. There was no challenging to the clients at that time. So it was not always very easy, but gained a lot of experience in there. I went on and had my 2 children, and then decided then I needed to move somewhere else, to move to Sheffield. So I decided in 2000 I came to Sheffield to work in Sheffield. Gained a lot of insight into Sheffield, worked in some very difficult areas, from real areas of poverty, and where there were lots of inequalities, high demographics of diverse ethnic communities, and you know, a lot of social problems and non-English speaking families that actually needed more support and help, even though the care you gave was just really often very uniformed and wasn't always specific to what clients and what families necessarily needed. In 2003, I became Sure Start Health Coordinator for Sure Start. And that was one of the more pivotal points in my career. I was there in five years, and I was managed not by a NHS, I was managed not by a health manager, but by a social care manager, who actually opened up a lot of my thinking and my vision and my insight into where I wanted to be and what I needed to do, and then really gave me a real understanding about health inequalities, around the demographics in health, and really helped me to target my work towards where I needed to be. And actually, for the first time, what I noticed in that time was that I had like a PDR or appraisal that actually sat down with me and actually mapped out some of what I needed to do. So to some extent, this manager was like the first sort of beginnings of a coach or a buddy, you know, or a mentor. So that was the first time really that I'd had that sort of care or approach, you know what I mean? Because I felt really, to some extent, when I was the Sure Start Health Coordinator, loved that job. But actually what happened then, you know, Sure Starts were on the attack from governments, and then they were withdrawn. And one of the worst things, strategy-wise, I think, was taking Sure Starts out of the framework, because actually it really gave children and families a really good start. I think it addresses some of the social and difficulties that we have today, because we don't actually focus enough on early parenting and those early years, and that Sure Start really did. So unfortunately, I had to go back then to health visiting. So I was just sent back to the team where I had been, and just sent back to what I was doing. So no care for my well-being or anything else, just back, get on with the caseload. Anyway, then I applied for a team leader job, and that was in 2000. Now we're talking just 2000, and I was actually a team leader for 10 years. 10 years as a team leader in Sheffield, working across different teams. Well, I was a good team leader, you know what I mean? I had I had the skills to really manage, to coach others, to support others. But actually, nobody thought about my development really in that. So I moved from teams. I'd moved to a team that I'd been a team. Actually, if we could just show the next picture, the next slide, actually. Sorry, I'm still on the same one. Come down to the next one. So that's a picture I have in my house, actually, about, it's not me, because I'm not that old, but I just love that picture, you know, that diversity of two nurses together. And how we can combine and learn from each other and different perspectives in that way. So I have that in my whole pictures. That's why I put that one in. But the next slide down, please. So that was one of my teams as a team leader. So that was the Ivy Lodge team, and I'm still very much in contact with this team. Wonderful team, work in Burngreave area in Sheffield. Quite a diverse team because we're a diverse area, many different languages spoken, many different social groups and classes. So that was a really good team. But after that team, because that team was really functioning and performing really well, I was transferred to other teams to bring other teams up. So I did about 4 different teams in Sheffield, bringing them up, but not actually bringing myself up. You know what I mean? So really helping to transfer teams where they weren't performing particularly well, but helping to change that dialogue and to bring them up. So really, it's in that time that I begin to think that I'm stuck. You know what I mean? I'm stuck. I've not really got a game plan, and I really need some sort of coaching and guidance. And I would say that to any aspiring leader, don't get stuck. I think really for me, my career journey has took far too long to be where I am now at level 8. It took far too long, and I've not necessarily had the guidance and the direction that I think I should have been more intentional of asking for. Maybe I can't put that down to others. I've got to take ownership and responsibility in that. So, what happened to me was a team leader band 7 for like 10 years, but then I'm thinking, I want to move into more managerial role, and that's when it became more difficult. You know, applying for eight jobs become more and more difficult, and was just not happening for me. I realised that some of this was about a glass ceiling. You know, that there was bias and racism, because often when I went to jobs, they say you're doing really well. You know, you just nip to the post, probably need to go and do this or do that or do this extra training. But I actually had a lot of training, a lot of experiences under my belt, and a lot of qualifications. And I just felt like what I was there to do really was to support those teams. And I think that's really has been my journey, to support those teams that weren't necessarily always doing particularly well, helping those sort of aspiring leaders within those teams to really come up and to bring them up. And I often did that, and then they'd come up and actually pass me, you know. So, you know, it was quite a frustrating and difficult time. So what I would say to you, if I could have the next slide, next slide, please. So that was the Ivy Lodge team. So creating a career development plan. So what I would say, your starting point, think about go back. That's it. Thank you. Yeah. What I would say to you is really these slides actually that I've got, this creating a career development plan is a course we deliver in R-Dash that we just started to deliver actually, and we delivered it to the first cohort was to global majority nurses at band 5 to try and support them into moving into band 6s. So really we start with career, sort to really think about a career development plan. Don't be like me and just sort of drift, you know what I mean, with no real insight and intention, but have a real starting point and a real clear destination point to where you want to go to. Think about how you're going to go through, what's the route you're going to take, and actually where are the gaps, and and actually how you're going to review, the progress that you're making. You know, really think about sitting down with a real development plan. And I would say this to any aspiring leader: be intentional and actually use supervisor, manager, mentor, anybody out there to be intentional to support you with this plan. You know, if you're sitting down in supervision, or if you've got your yearly PDR or appraisal, make sure, you know what I mean, how can you help me with my development plan? You know, say that to your manager, because it's part of their role also to help you to grow. So, you know, be really intentional about that. And I would say, if you can have the next slide, the starting point, really think about, you know, where you're wanting to start. The next slide, please. Think about the starting point, really where you're going to start, you know what I mean? And be really clear in your objectives and really set them out. And think, you know, where are my talents? Where, you know what I mean? What are my strengths? Where are my skills? Because we all do have them. But I know if you're like me, you sort of think, oh, well, you think of the deficit rather than actually the strength. So we need to start with that strength model. You know, I am strong, I am good enough, I can be there. And actually now, at least we've got a few role models. We all talked about no role models. Now, at least today, you can see people, you can think, actually, I want to go there. You know, I think in my journey, I didn't actually always see people that actually looked like me who were up there, who I could think that's where I want to be. So I think that's really, really excellent if you can do that. And think about the next slide, please, the destination. How are you going to go there? You know what I mean? What's your ultimate career goal? Are you happy where you are now? You know what I mean? Are you happy where you are now? And if you want to progress, what are the next steps to your goals? And what are the options out there? Think about your networks. Think about peers. Think about your seniors. Think about shadowing. Ask. You know what I mean? This is well, because ultimately you do well, the organization does well. You know, if you thrive and you feel happy, you feel you belong, you feel like the organization invests in you, you'll do well. I mean, some of these barriers we know are not just ours. You know, we you know what I mean? I can say all of that. I can go on to say the destination. Think about where the gaps are. The next slide's about the gaps. Think about where your gaps are, or where where you need to do a bit more, what else you need to do. But what I would say to you, could I have the next slide? About the gaps, please. But what I would say to you, the gaps are not always yours. Yeah, I mean, think you do your part, acknowledge where you feel that there are things that you need to come upon, things more that you need to do more. Think about your research. But actually, you know, in all of this, we're setting up here in this network, in this meeting, we have to think in terms of what can we do as organizations to bring the organization up to be more inclusive, to be more anti-discriminatory, more anti-racist, and to actually acknowledge the talent and the talent and the skills that we have in our colleagues, you know, in our Black and Brown global majority colleagues, and what we can do as managers or as senior leaders to actually address some of the discrimination that we have within our organisations. I'm mindful that time's really gone. I think both took up too much of my time, took some of my time. Right, so if you could just come on to the slide, just say measure, so that's the route we talked about, but if you can think about measuring your success, holding yourself to account, having a clear plan, celebrate your wins, really celebrate your wins. But before even that, think about your timescales, set realistic timescales, and if you're not reaching timescales, go back and revisit and review and think, what else can I take? What more do I need to do to be where I need to be at? You know, I really want to see more senior managers from global majority colleagues. We know that RS data tell us that's not where we are. 80s and above, just not the thresholds it should be within our organization. So it's not just about, you know, doing the extra training, telling your story, getting the narrative right, getting the coach, getting the mentor, asking for shadowing, you know, pushing yourself forward, but actually the organization supporting you in that, but also the organization supporting its anti-discriminatory, anti-racism approach to where you need to be. So we can have the next slide. And this is the last slide because I wanted to leave time for discussion and all colleagues have to go. So if you can just be resilient, you know what I mean? I've had to be resilient. I've took a lot of knocks in my life, particularly from our wonderful NHS that I'm still absolutely passionate about and absolutely love. But actually it shaped me and made me. And I would say you are good enough, you know, stand tall, hold your ground. You know, remember that change will happen one conversation at a time, and you have a right to be there. And, you know what I mean? And just stay strong and stay resilient. And this quote says, you know, I am. And if I can't fly, then run. If I can't run, then walk. If I can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forwards. Martin Luther King, you have to keep moving forwards, and we will succeed. We will get there. Maybe not in our generation, but we will really, really get there and make this NHS what we want it to be. Thank you.